From the moment zeros and ones were capable of being turned into images on the screen, allowing you to interact and make choices in a video game, was the moment where you became the main character in that narrative. That's literally the mechanic of every video game since the first video game was invented in October 1958 by a physicist named William Higginbotham, according to APS.org, that was very similar to the 1970s video game named Pong. You make a choice that decides your character's fate or the fate of the game as a whole, so it's not always in the sense of being the main character of the story itself, but the entire game. Like, depending on what specific gun you use for this round in Call of Duty or Left 4 Dead, will depend on if you lose the match for your team or if you get to escape with the rest of your team in a campaign. First-person narratives exist in most video games because that's what video games are all about. Allowing the gamer to be the main character of the story and walk through it as the narrative unfolds. However, there is a specific genre of video game that allows the gamer to have somewhat of a control over the narrative itself, and those are choose-your-own-adventure games or interactive games. The wild part is there isn't a set title for this type of game, so a lot of people see it as a lot of different things, and it goes by many different titles, which is fine with me because I feel it's a good sign when certain things don't fit in a box. But to continue. According to writinggames.com, CYOA stands for Choose Your Own Adventure. It is a form of a game where players assume the role of the protagonist in a narrative, making decisions at various points that affect the outcome of the story. Unlike traditional role-playing games, CYOAs are typically designed for single-player experiences. The paths and endings of the story can vary greatly based on the choices made, providing a unique and personalized story experience each time. Now, within this genre, there is a game that stands out to me, and it doesn't really matter to me how many times I watch it. It still hits me the same every single time, and that game is the Walking Dead Telltale series. I really enjoyed the entire series as a whole. However, I will say that though Season 3 with Javi in the game wasn't my favorite, I still feel it wasn't a bad season amongst all of them, and I feel that one of the reasons that we actually believed Clementine's character growth is because of that season. But I'm not here to talk about all the seasons, well, kinda. But I'm here to talk mainly about the one season that started it all and the relationship that I feel allowed the player to be really invested in the rest of the seasons, and that's the first season with Lee and Clementine. According to WalkingDead.fandom.com, The Walking Dead The Telltale series, originally titled The Walking Dead A Telltale Game series, is an episodic video game series that takes place within Robert Kirkman's The Walking Dead comic series universe. Telltale debuted the series with the release of episode 1 of season 1 on April 24th, 2012. I mean, seeing as when it was released, it makes sense why when I first saw someone play this game, it felt like a reset of timelines. Like, y'all remember 2012 when everybody thought the world was gonna end? Like, seeing the times we're living in now, I would say maybe the panic was warranted. And yes, I see that it's described as an episodic video game series. However, I'm calling it a choose your own adventure game so my brain won't clunk out on me. So you can call it whatever you want, but I'm putting it in this category because I told y'all these names for these types of games vary a lot, and I really don't want to get confused. So this first season and her relationship with Lee, I feel really set the tone and impacted how the rest of Clementine's story would go for all 4 seasons. And that leads me to why I'm making this video in the first place, because Lee and Clementine's relationship is so well done that it has become sort of a phenomenon in the video game space, and almost like a rite of passage for anyone who enjoys these types of video games. Every single player that I've seen play this game have the exact same emotion attached to these characters, and I've always found that so interesting. I don't think it's understood how great of a feat this is because it's not easy to get an audience to attach to characters like this, especially in the zombie genre that has had that sense of found family dating back to Night of the Living Dead, released in 1968. So this trope is nothing new to audiences with all the zombie related entertainment out there. So I say all this to say that Lee and Clementine are essentially lightning in a bottle, especially when you realize they didn't do anything that wasn't done before. So this really got me asking the question, why does Lee and Clementine's relationship have such an impact on the audience? What makes us love these characters so much and want to care for them? How did Telltale Games do it? Follow along with me on this journey as I dissect the phenomenon that is Lee and Clementine's relationship and more, cause why not? Major spoilers for all 4 seasons of The Walking Dead Telltale series and for The Last of Us Part 1 and 2 and the TV series. I know that's random, but shh. Just go on this journey with me, okay? It'll be fun. I hope. Before I continue, I'll give a bit of context to how Lee and Clementine met, but you may want to play the game or watch someone else play the game and then come back to avoid spoilers, and also because I won't be giving a beat-by-beat breakdown of the entire Walking Dead Season 1 story and of every single moment Lee and Clementine had with each other. So we first meet Lee when he's in the back of a police car on his way to being taken to jail because he killed a man his wife was cheating with in a spout of rage. They don't say what Lee did off rip, but it is eventually revealed as the story progresses. Throughout the drive, as Lee and the police officer are having a conversation, we as the viewers get hints that the world is in complete chaos. A lot of police cars and helicopters driving by, and the walker that walks in the middle of the road caused the police officer to crash the car, interrupting Lee's transit to jail. Lee is knocked out but comes to a police officer who is dead but somehow resurrects. Lee fights him off and runs away from more walkers and ends up at Clementine's house. He does see Clementine before he makes it to her house, but I feel like that interaction isn't as pivotal as the one after. I feel like that was done to just introduce the characters. Lee looks around Clementine's house for a bit and ends up playing the voice messages left on the answering machine by Clementine's parents that confirm their death. Clementine and Lee talk in the walkie-talkie for a bit before Lee tussles with Clementine's babysitter, who's now a walker. Clementine comes down with a hammer to help Lee, and he takes out the walker with the hammer. W teamwork. Now, I did all that yapping about their first introductions because I do feel that's an important device in storytelling, no matter the type of media, whether that be film, television, books, etc. I'ma save that talk for the next section though. But I feel the reason why we connect and care for Lee and Clementine so much, and why their relationship impacts us so much, is because this story and their relationship center around faith. The world that they once knew is now up in flames, with no sign of the flames being put out. Their father-daughter relationship is like a light in the midst of this entire story. It gives us hope despite hope being drained the longer the player plays the game. We invest in them because despite this being an absolute dumpster fire, they continue to work together and trust each other even despite all of their mess-ups throughout the way. We invest in them because in reality, if we were in Clementine or Lee's position, we would be terrified. Honestly, you were probably terrified watching them. You're Lee and you stumble upon Clementine at a time like this. This guardian role is thrown at you and you gotta do it with no training wheels. What if you mess up? What if that mess up leads to her being killed? Say you're Clementine. You have to trust that this man has your best interests at heart and is actually here to help you. What if I stay in this treehouse? I'll probably starve because where will I go and what will I do? The foundation of their relationship is trust and faith in each other, and that things will work out with the hope that they both will be safe. I feel that's one human connection that we all at the very least want to relate to, and that's faith. The story forces us as the player to only rely on faith, just like the characters, and to have that be the driving theme of a narrative in something like The Walking Dead is what makes their relationship and what allows us to connect with them. Trust in this story is innocence in a world of chaos that lacks trust. They represent brighter times for the world within The Walking Dead and our reality. Since the beginning of time, we've wanted to trust each other as humans, but there have been too many times in history where that trust has led to nothing but bloodshed, pain, and being taken advantage of. We as humans don't trust each other, and rightfully so, it makes sense. I'm not here to judge you for double taking a person you just met. However, I am here to say that if you've played The Walking Dead, that's why you're so invested in Lee and Clementine's relationship, and that's why you shedded many tears when Lee died. Lee was a true light in the world of The Walking Dead because he always looked out for Clementine, and he truly took her in as his daughter. He could have left her with the first adult he felt was responsible, but he didn't. It's almost like when he met her, it felt like fate, as if they were both there at the right place at the right time and everything fell perfectly into place. But I also feel their relationship had a lasting impact because Lee died. After many obstacles as the player, we have finally made it to the end of the story, and just when safety felt close, Lee was bit. And just like Lee, we were in denial. Maybe cut it off, but it was all the same. He still turned. It broke our hearts and made us realize how much we should have cherished the cute moments that Clementine and Lee had together. But as the player, you were literally in survival mode. Just like Clementine, we didn't fathom Lee dying. There wasn't even a route that was considered. I mean, this is Lee we're talking about. This man fought zombies on a limp, and beat the brakes off some cannibals for eating his friend and trying to feed it to them. He ain't going out by no walker bite. He's gonna get this epic ending. He's gonna go out swinging on some raiders or something, but nope. He dies by a walker bite. Yes, it's epic that he goes on this journey to find Clementine and he finds her and saves her from her kidnapper, but in the end, he dies cuffed to an old space heater just like anyone else could. The story takes us off of our pedestal and shows us how much we should have cherished more moments with Lee and Clementine throughout the entire gameplay, because in this world and in the real world, no one is superhuman. Everyone is a regular person who has to go at some point, so we should cherish the ones we love, which is what I feel is another one of the themes that can be seen in The Walking Dead Season 1. That's the reason behind why we connect with this story and Lee and Clementine. Lee and Clementine's found family relationship is a lesson on even if the world is in flames around you and you constantly find ways to put it out, in the moments where the smoke is floating up into the sky and the flames are temporarily put out, take some time to appreciate, love, and pay attention to the ones you care about around you. This game takes the player through pure survival mode territory as Lee, and all you're thinking is, let's just get somewhere safe. Let's get Clementine somewhere safe, and then we can get comfortable. Then we can settle down and know what to do next. So now you have these adorable moments when Clementine says something funny, or really nice moments where she confides in Lee, aka you, the player. As you played or watched, you automatically assumed that you would get more moments like this, more bonding time with Lee and Clementine. As a player, you just knew that you would get to see Clementine grow up through Lee's eyes. But that's not what happened. So as we watch Lee slowly turn, we think of all the times that should have been cherished throughout the game, instead of just moving on to the next big moment in the game. And this tears at your heartstrings, because now Lee is only a memory. And yeah, you can go back and play to remember him, but it won't be like the first time you played, and you won't get to see him evolve as a character in the story throughout the seasons. He's forever stuck in this point in time in our memories, just like he is for Clementine. So why do you love Lee and Clementine so much? Well, I think it's because they are a reminder to not only try to find light in the midst of chaos, but also to cherish the ones you love and the ones who bring light into your life, or to cherish those moments of light in your life that you may have. I also feel they are a reminder of faith in humanity. That's what Lee and Clementine's found family dynamic shows us, that light can be found in anyone and anything, and if we get the opportunity to experience it, we should cherish it instead of moving on to the next moment. That's why when we get that flashback of Lee in Season 4, it hits us in the jugular, because he's not coming back. But just like Clementine, we're learning to cherish the journey and memories that we had throughout Season 1 and the entire game series, really. We're learning to remember that light can exist despite all the darkness that exists around us, and that it can exist within us. In this chapter of the video, I wanted to talk about how I feel this game was able to accomplish giving us that connection between Lee and Clementine so successfully without it feeling like what we've already seen in the zombie genre, regardless of the medium of media used. In the previous chapter, I briefly mentioned a bit of an in-detail breakdown of Lee and Clementine's introduction in the story and to each other. So now I'm going to go into a bit more detail about how the intro to these characters immediately had us investing in Lee and Clementine's relationship without us even knowing it. So once Lee gets to the house and Clementine spots him, you can hear her say over the walkie-talkie, "Daddy," because she thought Lee was her dad. I feel Lee probably didn't hear this part because he didn't respond by saying, "No, I'm not your dad," or something like that. I feel he just heard the noise of the walkie-talkie, but I feel that line wasn't meant for the character of Lee to hear, but for the player to hear, to already set the tone for how the player will become Clementine's second dad through Lee. Another device that I feel they used when telling this story is positioning Lee as the underdog. What I mean by that is that majority of the adults that Lee met did not trust Lee with Clementine, which I also feel is a valid suspicion because, well, Clementine isn't his daughter, and the world is basically ending, so meeting strangers is especially risky. However, as the player, I still believe it's okay for you to have annoyance with these characters because you're playing as Lee, so you know Lee's intentions are pure and to truly protect Clementine. Both feelings can be valid at the same time. So I feel because they position Lee and the player as the underdog and having everyone doubt whether he actually cares for Clementine and wants to protect her really sets that tone for proving others wrong despite who he used to be pre-zombie apocalypse. I mean, even this old miserable man tried to kill Lee, and I feel this was not a valid reaction. And the thing that trips me out about characters like that is they're always so scared of murderers and what they might do to others in the group, yet they attempt to kill them with no fear whatsoever. If I was in a zombie apocalypse and I was genuinely scared of someone who was in our group of survivors, I wouldn't go picking fights with them and trying to kill them, but that's just me, I guess. Even after Lee proves himself in the story, he's met with a lot of suspicion and pushback from a new person that they meet, Krista. I'm giving her leniency because this is a zombie apocalypse world and she was pregnant, so mother mode was in full effect, and you honestly couldn't trust strangers before the zombie apocalypse, so trusting them now is extra hard. However, they had been with other people at the time, so she could have let up on the questioning him, but she was pregnant, so her emotions were all over the place. Also, there was this old dude at the end who offered to take Clementine, and I say that was too far because what? His reasoning wasn't even because he doesn't trust a stranger, but because he felt like Lee wouldn't make a good guardian for her. And I'm like, sir, you don't know Lee from here nor there, so how can you make that conclusion? But yeah, the underdog method of storytelling is used big time to have you really root for Lee to be the dad he always wanted to be. And I can confidently say he succeeded at that because he successfully saved Clementine, and despite their short time together, she remembered everything he taught her and she carried that with her through the rest of the seasons. And the thing that trips me out about that is Clementine doesn't even reminisce about her actual parents the way she does Lee. But I can equate that to the fact that, well, her parents didn't raise her in a zombified world, which is the world she will always live in, so I get it. But I bet her parents are staring down from heaven like, dang, were we that bad? Like, we don't even get a name drop to her new friends? Her daddy is boxing Lee in the clouds right now, orging him because he did pull through for Clementine. Another thing that allowed us to connect with Lee and Clementine so much, and this is obvious, is the fact that it's a choose your own adventure type of video game, which means the choices are personal. So they really put you in Lee's shoes when it comes to taking care of, raising, and protecting Clementine. From learning from mistakes like when he wasn't paying attention to her in the drugstore and how he had to learn from that, to protecting her from the cannibals on the farm, to fighting tooth and nail to get her back after she had been kidnapped, all the way to making the choice on whether or not she had to take him out in the end to stop him from turning. The small choices matter even more because those are the choices that you look back on fondly, like deciding whether or not she can curse, teaching her about what a salt lick is, checking up on her to make sure she's okay, talking to her about your past, and even teaching her how to handle her weapon on the train, and cutting her hair after being lectured by the guy living on the train. This story is able to meld together the normalcy of raising a child as a single parent with trying to survive in a literal zombie apocalypse, and it doesn't leave the player out of the experience. It knows when it's best to include the player in the choices of Lee and when to let them sit back and watch. Now for this point, I'm going to be traveling outside of season 1 for this one, and I feel what also makes their relationship so special is because they don't allow Lee's memory to die, and they do it in such a realistic way. He's not always popping up on screen in flashbacks, but in conversations and pivotal moments in Clementine's story throughout the seasons. They allow Clementine and the player to choose when to share their feelings and memories about Lee and who they want to share them with, just like in real life. Doing this allows the player to remember Lee without it being a forced decision, and that really allows the player to immerse into the story and the journey of Clementine. They see the option to talk about Lee and it reminds them of him, but they take it a step further and allow the player to decide how vulnerable they want to be with the people around them. Imagine if they constantly had Clementine talking about Lee without giving the player a choice on whether or not they want to. I feel it would have been good, but not as impactful as doing it this way. Them doing this sparingly also allows for the story to really hit when reminiscing about Lee, like when Clementine meets back up with Kenny after not seeing him for, I think it was years at that point, or when in the final season when we get one last cameo of Lee before they wrap up the entire story of the Walking Dead Telltale Games. I think it was just so well done. This point is going to be very obvious and very quick, but the voice acting. Lee's voice sounds like somebody that you want to be your dad. I'm not gonna lie. He sounds like if you mess up, a stern look and a lecture would be enough. Like him saying, "I'm so disappointing you," would turn your life around immediately. And Clementine's voice acting is so adorable. Like, she sounds like you just want to jump in front of her to protect her. Of course, the music is really well done and really hits those beats when the player needs to cry. Another thing that I feel allows the player to really invest in Lee and Clementine's relationship is the fact that Lee also lost his family. So it really lets the player know that Lee and Clementine really only have each other. Also during season 1, they allow Clementine to be her own person and make her own decisions outside of Lee like an actual kid. I feel what some found family dynamics in zombie films and types of zombie media may not hone in on is that if it's like a parent-guardian type of dynamic, they don't allow the kid to have their own thoughts and opinions and be their own person like in real life. It feels like they're usually there to make the adult main character look noble for taking care of and wanting to protect the child that's not theirs, or to make surviving harder because of their curiosity. The Walking Dead actually allows Clementine to be her own character down to the last episode. For example, when Lee, Clementine, and the group of survivors stumble upon a station wagon with food and clothes, you as the player have an option to side with Clementine and not take the food and clothes, or to decide to take it at the cost of her viewing you differently, whether she understands your decision or not, because that's real life parenting. Clementine feels it's wrong to steal other people's stuff. So she doesn't want to, and instead of the story allowing you, the player, and Lee to make a decision that changes her mind or allows her to understand you regardless of the decision, it forces you into a position of, dang, if I take this food and she doesn't want to, she'll see me differently, but we've been starving and need this to survive. But if I don't, then I'll keep her trust, but we might be hungry. These are rough decisions, but they're realistic ones. Clementine, at the end of the day, even though she is a child and doesn't understand the tough decisions, is her own person. So if she feels something is bad, then she doesn't want to do it. And seeing basically her second dad do that, she might change her mind about him a bit and lack trust in him. And that forces the player to think about every decision because they don't want to impact their relationship with Clementine, especially because that could lead to life or death in later episodes, even though it actually doesn't. But I still feel this device is used in such a great way in the game. We've already come to the conclusion on my opinions about how I feel the zombie genre has a sense of found family dynamics regardless of the medium of media. The world ends and then strangers get together to survive. The zombie genre tends to bring out this tenderness despite it being on the more chaotic and gory spectrum of horror films, and I wanted to talk about that for a bit and how I find that really interesting. From Night of the Living Dead, released in 1968, all the way to the most recently released zombie film 28 years later, released in 2025, they all have an essence of found family and the goodness in humanity. And I know that 28 years later follows an actual family, but that's why I emphasize essence, because it either shows through the community presented in the medium as we follow an actual family, or it's literally about strangers coming together and working together to survive. So it's there at the end of the day. I mean, just look at one of the best zombie video games of all time. Yes, I am biased because of my nostalgia for it. Let me have it. Now, I find it interesting because you can say, well, it's because it has no choice but to have that dynamic. If the world ends in a zombie apocalypse, people are bound to scatter and have to trust people that they've never met before to survive, leading to these people trauma bonding over losing their loved ones and having to build a relationship with each other. Funny enough, as humanity seems to be coming to an end, they have to depend on the humanity of people to survive. However, I don't think zombie films have to always take that route. They could take the spiritual route, considering that's what formed the genre in the first place. Or they could take the lone wolf route like I Am Legend, even though that would eventually lead to the found family dynamics. Or they could take the contagion route and focus on how the zombie virus infects millions and follows the scientists as they try to save the world. I feel it doesn't have to take the found family dynamic that is often chosen when it comes to the zombie genre in different media, but it's chosen all the same. And this isn't to send hate towards the fact that that route is chosen, because it is the safest route and the best blank canvas for a creator's creativity. Also, it's less risky and there's more to work with. I also feel like this genre takes on the found family dynamic so much because, well, there needs to be a balance. I feel any media that takes on a zombie apocalypse needs that hope in humanity. so that the entire story isn't just filled with dread and despair. However, if that is the point of the story being told, then honestly, I'm not completely against it, because it's all about the theme behind why the story is being told, and maybe the person telling the story wants to focus on that despair and build to a bigger story. I'm looking at you, The Walking Dead Telltale series season 1. Why, Lee? Why? As we play as Lee, we tirelessly climb uphill to protect Clementine and do our best to get her to safety. And when we finally reach that chance for safety, Lee gets bit. And it makes the uphill battle feel like it was all for nothing, because Lee won't be able to get to see her grow up. But that ties into the story a lot better, because it grounds us in the reality that your favorite characters in the story can and will die off eventually, because that's the world of the zombie apocalypse and The Walking Dead. However, you must cherish the moments with those characters that are fun to experience. And I got off topic. Okay, let's get back on topic and back to discussing why the zombie genre brings us to tears. Well, to sum it up, I feel that trusting a stranger in this world and our actual reality is no easy feat. So when it's done in the game and you actually build genuine and trusting bonds with these strangers, it feels nice as the player to know that you weren't wrong. Though depending on the story or game you're playing, you're wrong. But at the end of the day, that doesn't take away from the fact that building close relationships with complete strangers and being right about it gives us hope as humans, that everyone isn't all bad, and that even when the rest of the world is burning, that there are people out there who will make sure you're okay first before helping you put out the fire. It's the simple storytelling device of showing light in the midst of a dark and scary world. It's gonna pull at our heartstrings every single time. The story of The Walking Dead is not a unique one, especially when you consider that it came out when The Walking Dead TV show was already 3 seasons in. So this concept that The Walking Dead Telltale Games was approaching wasn't something that had never been done before. And I feel that's what makes it a masterclass in storytelling. When you hear professionals talk about writing, whether that be a screenplay, novel, or pilot for a TV series, the advice is similar when teaching about building stories and characters and hitting beats in the story. But I feel that Telltale's The Walking Dead take that to a whole other level, especially when you see they use the tools at their disposal, like the multiple choice that comes with Choose Your Own Adventure games. They could have easily just allowed the player to make choices that impacted the story in a major way, but I feel they saw the potential in the players making choices that would seem unimportant. It allowed them to really connect with the characters in the game, like, for example, when Lee had to do the rations for the group. It could have been easy to automatically have Lee give Clementine food. However, not doing that forced the player to think about Clementine and to remember to give her something to eat and what to give her. Do you give her some fresh fruit, or try to add a bit of carbs to her diet with the cheese and crackers, since you don't know the next time y'all would get food? Even when it came to the farm with the cannibals and Lee was piecing him up, the player had a choice to stop or to keep going, and even after that, they had the choice to kill him. And I will admit that it didn't have a true impact to the story. I don't think that was the point of having it in there though. I think the point of having that in there is so that the player can once again think about being that parent to Clementine and setting an example for her. I feel Lee's anger was valid. Depending on the choice you made, they almost had kids eating human beings. Like, yeah, I feel Lee's anger, aka the player's anger, is completely valid. However, that comes with the tough decisions of being a parent. Do you teach him a lesson and beat him up real bad and walk away because you don't want to kill someone in front of Clementine? Or do you kill him to make sure he doesn't come back into the fold, because Lily rose from the dead in season 4 and she was worse than she was before? The details that seem so minor to most is what subconsciously allowed you to connect with the characters Lee and Clementine more than you thought you would. I know you're probably like, well, they have a lot of mechanics that a film and TV show and even some games don't have. And my point isn't the use of mechanics that Telltale used to help with their storytelling, even though I'm very impressed with how they use them. My point is the fact that the storytelling in The Walking Dead focused on the minor details. Have you ever watched a film or a show, which you probably have, that showed you something that you literally thought, why does this matter and why should I care? Only to see by the end of the film or TV show that detail mattered way more than you thought it did, and it left you in shock and awe, ready to watch again to see what else you could have missed. I have, and I love it every single time. And I feel within that is where the story of The Walking Dead does stand out, because though there are a lot of details that don't matter to the plot or overall story, they matter to the characters of Lee and Clementine and their relationship, and I feel that's what some stories may be missing. Every detail in a story doesn't have to help assist the major plot as long as it's not there senselessly. I'm gonna give an example, but bear with me since I made this up on the fly. Two friends are having a conversation at a party, and they are talking about the old days and how they should hang out more, and they go into detail about all the fun times they used to have. Then all of a sudden, a fire breaks out and kills one of the friends and everyone inside the house. One of the friends escapes, and the story turns into one about how the friend is trying to find their purpose in life. The conversation itself does not add important details to the major plot, but these are details that matter to the character because that conversation influences the character and the way they move throughout the story as it plays out. These details shown let the audience know that though it's not important to the overall story, it's important to the character, and I feel it's a reflection of real life. There are things that happen in life that don't have a lasting impact on us as humans. Like, we won't keep seeing it, but it does shape how we move throughout life. The made-up character will forever want to do things in the moment with the people that they care about because they lost a chance and opportunity to catch up and make new memories with an old friend that they were missing because of the unexpected circumstances of life. So I feel that's what The Walking Dead does. They show care to the details of the characters and not just the overall plot of the story, which allows each character to feel real and exist outside of the current plot playing out. To help better explain what I mean, let's look at another one of their games. So when it comes to the Batman Telltale game, I find it really entertaining. However, I feel this attention to detail of each character is what was missing. Batman was already a well-developed character within the DC comics in the game when they released it. However, despite that, I felt there were not really any personal aspects to Bruce Wayne. I feel most of the decisions made were focused on the plot and moving it forward, which isn't inherently bad. However, in order to get that personal experience like season 1 of The Walking Dead, they should have also allowed us to make decisions that were personal to Bruce Wayne and not focus only on the major plot beats. Like, for example, it is a running joke that Batman won't kill you. He'll just paralyze you from the waist down as you drink through a straw, trying to decide on which glasses you'll be wearing because he caused you permanent eye damage for stealing a loaf of bread from the local corner store. So I feel it would have been an interesting choice to do the same thing they did for Lee in season 1 and have the player decide how far they would go when it came to beating up a random criminal. Should they keep punching to set the tone for the rest of Gotham, or should they hold back to maintain a bit of balance in their vigilante justice? Or have a scene where Alfred and Bruce are talking and give the choice on whether he wants to be vulnerable about the loss of his parents or not. You can even have a choice there on whether or not he goes to a charity event or keeps investigating as Batman. Would it have a huge impact on the main plot? Probably not, but it has an impact on Bruce. Now, I will say I haven't seen this game as much as I have The Walking Dead, so these choices definitely could have been somewhere throughout the game and I missed it, but hopefully you get my point. Would these things impact the major plot? No, but it would allow the player to connect with Bruce on a deeper level than solving crime and breaking the tibias of bad guys, because that's what makes a great story. One that doesn't just focus on details of the major plot, but treats each individual character as their own person with feelings outside of getting from point A to point B in the story. The character doesn't revolve around the story. We just so happen to be viewing a story that takes place within one or a couple of the characters' lives. For a long time, there have been comparisons of Lee and Clementine and Joel and Ellie, or Clementine and Ellie, and though I can understand why it's very tempting to compare the two, especially since both duos are very popular in the video game space and have had somewhat of a similar impact on players, I feel they truly have nothing in common at all. Now, this isn't a rant on me saying how they shouldn't be compared. I actually find topics of comparing characters from different games and universes quite fun. This is more to show how similarities of stories and characters can often outshine what makes specific characters and stories unique, and this is also a segue into an upcoming detour on this topic that I want to discuss, so bear with me. When we look at Lee and Clementine and Joel and Ellie, the only similarities they have is that they have this father-daughter found family dynamic. Outside of that, each character is different. Lee and Joel are completely opposite, with Lee being open to being that father figure to Clementine almost immediately, where it took Joel a while to truly embrace that father figure role. I would even argue that it was because Ellie was about to die when he decided to take on that role. Clementine had a way different upbringing than Ellie did. You're probably expecting me to say that Ellie has more training. However, the difference between Ellie and Clementine is that Clementine has had to grow up and spend her life in the world of The Walking Dead, never really knowing what it feels like to have a safe home until the very last season, where Ellie has experience outside of a safe haven, even at times by choice, but not for a large part of her life. So Ellie and Clementine are completely different characters simply on how their upbringings were. Ellie craved adventure and to be outside of Fedra, whereas Clementine craved a safe haven and somewhere where her and AJ could be comfortable and safe. The way these characters are portrayed in the worlds that they have to survive in and their experiences are completely different. And you're probably wondering where I'm going with this, and well, here's the detour. And yes, I made up a topic just to segue into this one because I wanted to segue into a detailed analysis on parts of The Last of Us Season 2 that I feel caused it not to hit as hard as the game, and how I feel it could have been done better, and what they can do to possibly revive the upcoming season, which I technically already did on my channel, but I will admit, around that time I held back a lot because I wanted to talk about it, but I didn't want to add on to the unnecessary amount of hate that at times wasn't even about the show, but used as an avenue to say hateful stuff and expose where their anger truly lied. Because I feel I could have been honest, but if you have 3 people in a room and 2 people aren't giving constructive criticism but are just being hateful, and then one person actually wanted to see the show improve and see a better adaptation of their favorite game, so they actually give constructive criticism, it will go unnoticed and may even be an opening for people to use that person's opinion as a shield for them to be hateful and send hate towards the actor Bella Ramsey as well. So yeah, I held back in the video and in the comments. Looking back on it, I do wish I would have just waited until all the hype died down, honestly. Also, I had what I feel like were really healthy debates with some people in the comments, which is really cool. I like those because everyone isn't going to have the same opinion as me, and I'm open to hearing different perspectives because there were for sure some really good points made. With that being said, I'm going to try to remember everything from the points I made in that video and in the comments. However, some of my opinions may have changed because of the comments or just having time to think about season 2 as a whole, or they may be the same. However, I'm definitely open to talking about it in the comments, but be nice, okay? We can have healthy debates. That video proves it. I don't want to have to headbutt y'all through the screen. If you don't want to watch this part of the video, it's all good. You can go ahead and click off, but don't cook my algorithm, okay? If you were feeling what I was saying, I'm open to receiving a like, or subscribe. Okay, so I'll get this out of the way and say that I'll be focusing on the storytelling aspect of this analysis, though I do have other issues with it, like how they should have aged Jesse down too, and also my updated rating, I give it a 5.5 now, because the acting and visuals I feel were doing a lot of the heavy lifting for season 2. So I'll start with the first thing that comes to mind from this season, and that's the fact that it was a lot of telling and not showing. Like, for example, there was a scene with Abby when it was like one of her dream flashbacks and she told herself not to go in there, and I didn't really like it. I was already feeling that from the vibe of the scene, so it didn't need to be said in my opinion. Also, there was a lot of telling not showing with the character of Abby in general, which was really unfortunate. They took away her muscles, and I didn't like that, not because she can't be strong, but because it was a huge part of the visual storytelling for the character of Abby. It shows she bulked up like that to prepare for her one-on-one battle with Joel. It shows she saw him as this big monster who she needed to prepare for, and also how much Joel took up her mind for a large part of her life. I feel the game did that better by showing that through Abby's emotions. In the game, there wasn't any dialogue, and from my memory, Abby didn't even tell Joel that he killed her dad, because to either character, it didn't matter, which I feel is really good storytelling, because knowing who Joel is, he figured his past would catch up to him, so he stared down that golf club like a G. And to Abby, it didn't matter if he guessed right, because at the end of the day, her dad was gone because of him, and this is how she was going to handle the situation. So I feel that scene in the show not only came prematurely, but it wasn't executed well. Especially when you have Abby calling the killer of her father handsome. I don't care how fine Pedro Pascal is. He's playing the man that killed her father. To Abby, that man is the ugliest man alive. So I feel that was really weird dialogue to add in. Also, I feel even if you didn't go the route of Abby having muscles, you have to replace that with something that can be a visual metaphor to express Abby's feelings and how she handles the loss of her father over the years and wanting revenge on Joel. However, I feel the show didn't do that. Now I'm moving to Ellie, and I'm gonna admit right now that a commenter named Nothing Better to Watch ate me up in those comments, and I respect it because I was holding back majorly. It was a combination of trying to be nice while also being scared to go too hard on the show because, like I mentioned before, people were wilding. However, I do agree with the commenter on the fact that the character of Ellie wasn't done well. She had no growth from season 1 despite it being a major time skip. They held back a lot on Ellie's character and didn't truly commit to her doing bad things. Everything Ellie did in the show was an accident, whereas everything Ellie did in the game was done on purpose. The pipe beatdowns and knives to the neck were all done with intent, and that haunted Ellie in the game because that's what revenge can possibly do to a person, especially if one of those people was pregnant. And speaking of pregnancy, I didn't like the fact that Dina revealing she was pregnant in the show led to them doing the do because I don't feel that is a very realistic response. Even though I know there's no specific way a human can and should respond to any situation, Ellie being angry with Dina in the game was a realistic response because imagine someone you care about agrees to go on this revenge quest and y'all were knocking at death's door multiple times and then they reveal they're pregnant. I would be ticked because what? There is no celebration in the air. There's panic because now I gotta think about how to get you back home alive. You and a little one in your belly. I feel like maybe they didn't commit to Ellie being like she was in the game because they were scared the audience wouldn't like her. And if that's the case, that shouldn't matter because I'm a true believer in allowing the audience to feel different emotions. The audience doesn't have to always like their favorite character or agree with everything they do. It's the complexities of a character that allows a story to be good. At times, I feel the audience's conflict is the sign of a great story because the world is not black and white. There's a lot more gray than people like to admit. So if the audience didn't like Ellie, that's okay because we aren't going to always like every single character we see on screen. Though I don't feel worrying about Ellie being unlikable was the issue because I was watching a video the other day that was talking about season 2 and they added in snippets of the after show podcast, which I should really listen to before doing analysis on shows because it would give me a good idea of the thought process behind certain choices when it comes to shows and how they decide to move. But at the same time, I like to watch shows and analyze them without extra influences and opinions so that I can form my own thoughts on what I see. So maybe I'll listen to things like after shows once I finish the show entirely to possibly help avoid that. To continue, I heard some snippets and I don't think the characters in the story was fully understood, so I think that's why a lot of the characters in the story didn't reach the potential of the story from the game. Another example of this is Dina. It doesn't matter how much she loves Joel, she shouldn't care more than Ellie. It made it weird because Joel was basically Ellie's daddy, and they had been through so much together. So to have her convince Ellie to keep going in the show doesn't make sense, especially when by the end of the game, Dina leaves Ellie for not being able to let go of her revenge and be a family. Also, it seems like they wanted to explore the world of The Last of Us Part 2, and that's fine. However, there was no balance in the show. We would get shown things about Isaac and the Seraphites, but it just felt like we were getting thrown things in the midst of the main plot. They even changed the scene that was supposed to be Abby's and gave it to Ellie, and in my mind I was confused because I don't feel like there was a reason to do that. It's not like Abby got out of that situation on her own. Yara and Lev helped her despite Abby giving the biggest aura farm I've ever seen in the trailer with that scene. So yeah, I don't know why they did that and then had Ellie go right back to trying to get to the aquarium. The more I think about season 2, the more I do get a bit sad because you can just imagine what the live adaptation could have been and people's reactions to it. I'm gonna go into a bit on what I feel they could have done to help this adaptation and how I would have done it if I was in the writer's room with the commenters from the previous video. Originally, I thought that maybe they were moving a bit fast to catch the hype of the show, which could still be true. However, this is what I feel every video game adaptation, whether it be a film or a TV show, should do, and that's get as many writers from the game as possible, because making anything is a team effort. So when it comes to writing, and seeing as this story wasn't written by just one person, I would get as many writers from the video game as possible, and I know that that would dip into the budget. However, I feel like that is a worthy sacrifice, because the story is the foundation of the show. If the story isn't good, then you're likely to not get a good adaptation. So adding as many writers as possible from the original game will not only allow the essence of the video game story to still be within the TV show, but seeing as they wanted to expand on the world of The Last of Us, that could have been done much more smoothly, especially when you have the writers from the game to bounce ideas off of. Before I continue, I do want to give credit to the commenters of my previous video for also influencing my choices and changes on how I would have done it, and giving me different perspectives on the flow of the game. Now, how I would have done it is I would have kept season 1 the same, because it felt like a one and done action adventure, and I know that somewhere in the previous comments someone said that the first season should have extended into the second one to help the audience get more attached to Ellie and Joel, and I agree, but in a different way, because this commenter also mentioned how shows don't have a lot of episodes these days, and that's why I say it should be its own season, because I agree with that as well. For some reason nowadays, shows don't go on for that long. The seasons are really short, and I'm confused on why. So I think that the first season should exist as its own season, and just give it more episodes to flesh out the first game and allow the audience to grow close with Ellie and Joel. I'll stand by my opinion that season 2 should be what the Price episode was in the show. Let's grow up with Ellie and Joel and see their relationship evolve in the environment of Jackson, because I feel their relationship is too complex to try to cover in one episode. Also, that would have allowed us to get attached to Jackson as well, so that the Battle of the Infected would have had a way larger impact on the audience, because we spent so long with Jackson. So to see it be in that amount of danger would have really shook the audience and gave that conflict a larger impact. Now here's where the difficulties of adapting The Last of Us Part 2 come into play, because you really want the impact that the game's story had to have that same impact on the audience watching the show. I'm gonna stick to my decision to keep season 3 as Ellie's crash out season. I feel like showing it exactly how it was done in the game, chronologically from Ellie's point of view of course, is a great way to do it, especially when you consider the fact that they were hinting at what was going on with the wolves and the Seraphites. Then season 4 is where we walk with Abby on this journey, but don't highlight Joel's death and kind of speed through that, because the audience already doesn't like her for killing characters that they cared about and spent so much time with. This season is risky within itself, so salt should not be thrown on the wound, because that would be equivalent to us having to follow Negan for a whole season and see his perspective up until he killed Glenn. I'm not gonna lie, I wouldn't care and I would have been angry, but I still would have watched. However, that's just me, and I know everyone thinks differently. So having an entire season following the person that just killed off one of your favorite characters is a very tricky one and not an easy task. However, I'm chaotic when it comes to storytelling, and I want the audience to feel different emotions. So I would have did it anyway and prayed for the best, because I feel that the way this story is told is vital to the themes I feel The Last of Us Part 2 covers, like how draining and futile revenge can be, and seeing someone's perspective outside of your own, and also just how gray the world is. I feel making the audience feel the impact is really important, so I wouldn't have softened the blows. However, my career isn't on the line writing this show, so take my opinion with a grain of salt. To make it a bit better, I would have added in the ongoing war between the wolves and the Seraphites that would have been hinted at in Ellie's season, and really get into that as well. Use this time to expand on the world some more and other characters like Yara and Lev, so that maybe following Abby's story won't be so hard to do. I don't think it would have caused the plot to be lost, especially when you consider that the characters Yara and Lev get into the mix with Abby. Now the season ends with Abby and Ellie at the theater after they fight, and Abby spares Dina because of Lev, and then skip to Dina, Ellie, and JJ, and them being a happy family. And of course, that's when Tommy comes in and convinces Ellie to go after Abby again. Ellie decides to go after Abby, and then boom, end of the season. Now, I will say so far that this season will be packed with a lot, especially when adding in the war between the wolves and the Seraphites. So this breakdown is more of how I feel the beats of the story should have went, and not an exact breakdown of each season down to the exact science. So there could be some seasons added here and there, or maybe even allow some seasons to flow into each other to allow the story to flow better and not be so packed together. Now, season 5, or the final season, depending on how many seasons it would take to reach this point, is following Ellie on her adventure to hunt down Abby while simultaneously following Abby and Lev on their adventure. Now, I am an advocate for having the audience feel the emotion of the story, even if it's not a pleasant one. However, following Abby for too long would shut them off to even wanting to continue the show, because she did kill characters that we were close with, and we just sat through following her for the last season. So I will follow mostly Ellie, but whenever Abby and Lev would get that screen time, I would make it as meaningful as possible. So I will follow Ellie and Abby simultaneously until their final fight, and I would make it as exhausting as possible, because that's what their entire journeys have felt like up until this point, exhausting. And then, of course, end off with Ellie sitting in the empty house that was once loving with one less finger that causes her to not be able to play the guitar. The one thing that would allow Ellie to connect with Joel once more, she can't do because of her endless fight for revenge. So now she has to sit in silence with only the wind to feel the emptiness of her house, and cut to black, and that's the end of The Last of Us video game adaptation. The story is very bleak, and honestly I feel you're not supposed to enjoy it. And I don't mind stories like this because we need stories like this. Every single story that we come into contact with doesn't always have to make us happy, as long as it makes us feel something. And there should definitely be a balance of different types of stories. This story, I feel, isn't about picking sides or who's right and who's wrong, because technically from both Abby and Ellie's perspectives, they both had every right to go after each other. Abby killed Joel without the full understanding that, and this is my opinion, so don't go off on me, but that her dad was getting ready to kill a kid. Would it have possibly cured the world? Yes. However, I feel it's not right to not tell her that she's going to die. I feel they should have woken her up and asked her what her answer was. Then whatever it was, just accepted that, because it is her life and her body at the end of the day. Yes, I know it would have saved the world, but would you really want to build a new world off of innocent bloodshed? Because Ellie did not know she was going to die, and they most likely knew that before putting her under, so I feel that wasn't right. Now I feel Abby is validated in going after Joel and killing him, because he didn't have to kill her dad. He could have shot him in the kneecap or something and got away. I know I just said he would have killed Ellie without telling her. However, I'm not finna sit up here and pretend he wasn't making a hard choice when it came to saving the entire world. It's not like he kidnapped a random little girl and was trying to experiment on her for the heck of it. That decision was very much a trolley problem. Save one or save millions. And I can tell you right now, I don't think that decision is an easy one to make, whether you decide to go through with it or not. So like I said, this story isn't about who is valid for their revenge or who's right or wrong. Multiple things can be true at one time. This story isn't about questioning the morals of the player. I feel this story boils down to the grades of life and how we, the audience or the player, would deal with the grade of life that is being presented to us, especially when you consider how in all types of media, there usually isn't gray. It's black and it's white. It's good and it's bad. It's rare that we get a story that truly presents an honest portrayal of how gray life is and what happens when the audience or the player is shown a true reflection of how the world is outside of their usual villain and hero story given to them. What I feel they can do moving forward, since season 3 is on the way, is to pull in those writers from the game. However, if not, then take more risk with the characters. Allow them to grow and be flawed, and don't stray far from the game. Own what I feel are the original themes of the game, and don't be scared to make the audience feel something outside of their usual emotions. Turn that gray filter all the way up. Now, this section did go a bit astray from the topic at hand, but I don't know. I just feel like talking about it in this video, so I did, instead of turning it into a video of its own. Also, take everything I say with a grain of salt, okay? I just like to analyze films and TV shows that I really like. I'm not trying to make it seem like I know better than anyone, because even if I was a professional writer or director, I'm still human and wouldn't know everything. So take this as more of having a fun conversation with someone about games and film and TV that you're interested in. If you decide to comment, don't go off the walls and watch the entire video before rushing to the comments. Once again, shout out to the commenters from my previous video. Now that was a long one, and I actually really enjoyed it. I've had this idea for a while, and I was honestly really scared, but also really excited to write about it. I hope I can bring even longer videos to y'all about shows, films, and games. I plan on uploading this video in January. However, if it gets uploaded in February, happy Black History Month and happy Valentine's Day, because I don't know when in February. How did you think this video was? Did I hit the mark on why you feel really connected to Lee and Clementine? What do you think about my analysis of The Last of Us and The Walking Dead, where they point you heard before, which is highly likely? Let me know what you think below. If you decided to listen to me y'all for this long, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you decide to stick around for more. Remember to keep it kind. Peace.